So I'm going to bring in Thane now. So you've heard from Thane earlier on at the start of the webinar, and he's project leader here at Deep Science Ventures. And he has been working full time on the Venture Science Doctorate for almost 2 years now. He's back in and he's just going to share a little bit more about the new type of PhD that we've been talking about, why we're launching it, when we're launching it. The first candidates are starting in September this year, and really how our approach to scoping underpins the curriculum and the whole methodology. So over to you, Thane.
Thanks, Claire, and thanks to our panelists and everybody for coming out. This is going to be the last kind of session to kind of bring you in, and we'll have some Q&A after me. I want to tell us why we set out to do this, what some of my motivations are, and I also want to go through the curriculum that we've built, the kind of 3-year journey that you experienced on the Venture Science Doctorate. So let me first just start by telling you why I'm so excited to be leading this initiative. I loved my PhD. It was a fascinating and challenging experience, and I got to do important work to improve patient outcomes. And so I worked at the cutting edge of medical imaging, 3 universities working together with 2 large corporates. And this super group was tasked with building an optic fiber microscope that would go into the human lung. And I developed a imaging method that allows us to start to actually read the immune system and get that microscopic data out for real-time decisions in hospitals. And so this could really speed up clinical trials. It was exciting to be a part of a project that would also give us more accurate diagnosis and disease monitoring in the lung. My training gave me a greater awareness of the innovations that we need in medical imaging specifically. But when I finished, I wanted to know how can actually that process that I went through, doctoral training, supply the science and technology workforce to meet the challenges that we have been talking about today and talking about unpicking and unlocking. If you start getting into what PhD training is and its history, it's changing all the time, actually. And so we do have room to improve its role, specifically towards road mapping and sort of mainstreaming that as a technique in scientific training. And also, I think, touching on some of the points of growing this practice and getting more of the kind of CEO, DARPA program manager type mixed person trained and out there. We need to be thinking about how this form of training is building up science clusters and organizing units of science at an ecosystem level that are challenge driven. And we can do that. There's actually a lot of space for that improvement. If you look at things like patenting, one of the main ways science solves problems today, where in the US, where there's lots of innovation coming out, but still it's 2 in every 100 STEM PhDs who are actually patenting their research. I think we can do more to arm graduates with the real world insights and tools that they need to make meaningful technologies. And so that was a big driver, specifically through scoping, where we practice making these large-scale societal aims the focus and the core of everything that our research projects are about, analyzing industries to find constraints and find ways around them. But patents aren't everything. We also then need skilled people to run with that knowledge and to take it into market, to take it and fundraise, to develop a product pipeline around that. And so 80% of UK STEM PhDs actually don't continue in scientific careers after they graduate, which is a massive loss, I think, and a shame, because 80% of STEM PhDs actually according to Nature. And so we have that on the one side. Meanwhile, communities and governments are struggling to find skilled people at scale. Skills gaps of over 100,000 in the life sciences sector in the UK, the AI sector. Meanwhile, the climate crisis is brewing, and we've got things to do in terms of accelerating our pandemic response. So we need both these tools that are generating really useful societal knowledge and applying science in that way, but also bringing us people who will do that carrying into the workforce and then actually create jobs around that knowledge. We can, I think, taking this back to the PhD itself, smooth the commercialization path for high impact inventions, particularly those with strong market pull to create deep tech jobs. It's something I'm very passionate about because my own research in technology was endorsed by GlaxoSmithKline and supported, but our commercialization process where I was training was retroactive and unclear at that point. And so instead we could have one that was proactive and clear and automatically moves what we know to be proven technologies with strong market pull forward. This is why I'm so excited to be working from DSV, launching the Venture Science Doctorate, because we've so far founded 35 companies with amazing technical founding teams. These are people that work in hard science fields such as therapeutics, chemicals, engineering, nanotechnology, robotics. They're in industries that DARPA expert Bill Bonvillain would describe as complex, established legacy sectors. Complex sectors that we still need to do a lot of work in to pull forward and to make progress in, such as energy, chemicals, healthcare, semiconductors, and agriculture. Example of some of these companies include Mission Zero, a company which, inspired by the way the human lung concentrates CO2, has developed a biomimetic process for direct air capture, and accordingly have been funded by Bill Gates and Elon Musk. Imtune, a company which manufactures revolutionary cell therapies in the body itself, harnessing our immune system to produce life-saving drugs, and funded by OpenAI's Sam Altman. And Rhizocore, a fungal technology company which grows hyper-resilient, deep carbon sequestering forests by deploying cutting-edge bioreactor design. And we form these companies from first principles, from the outcome working backwards, as you've been hearing so much of today, through scoping, totally and completely agnostic to the technology, instead obsessively focused on the target commercial and social outcome. Building on the success of that process, the Venture Science Doctorate embeds ideas early into the research process and into the PhD itself. As you've been hearing from our panelists, we urgently need to think about how we're leveraging innovation road mapping and the specific skill sets around it, where this is going overlooked in traditional science training. That overlooking that today is I think, a massive disadvantage to society. And we've heard of a lot of exciting work that's going on that will be really useful where innovation road mapping is being applied. Particularly training people to take these research projects forward and answer the kinds of questions entire nations need answered. If you're interested in the kind of national and global case for some of what we're talking about today, we actually wrote a policy proposal with the Day One project, Forging 1,000 Venture Scientists to Transform the Innovation Economy. So you'll find more info there. But even before this policy proposal, I was well aware that we needed new programs to make these improvements, because my PhD actually allowed me to come to DSV for 3 months and see this kind of solution being worked out in this process for innovation road mapping. And so my time at DSV helped me to realize when I went back how well-resourced and actually the opportunities that we have at university as PhDs, the freedoms that we have actually to take some of that mindset and bring it back to the same environment and think, okay, we are free to be walking into the offices of world-leading experts to come up with powerful interventions for real commercial needs, and then to go right back to the bench and actually start prototyping. And so why is that not happening today is a big question. Why is it somehow strange to talk about PhD training that way today? And how could we make this the norm for dedicated and inventive people? The Venture Science Doctorate is our answer to truly optimized, inclusive runway for deep tech entrepreneurship. And our vision is to give the world's most diverse and entrepreneurial innovators the freedom, the networks, and the investment they need to solve the world's hardest problems. We're doing this with a world-class multinational coalition of universities, industrial research teams, government agencies, and the venture ecosystem. And this September, the first venture scientists will start scoping. In 3 years, they'll have built VC-backed companies in health and climate. And they won't stop there, neither will we. In 10 years, we will scale to training 1,000 venture scientists per year. Let me tell you a little bit about the Venture Science Doctorate, the principles that are so key to it. This is a 3-year program, which is venture focused, it's outcome centric. It's a program nested in a distributed institution, and it's run diversity first from recruitment to incorporation. We're venture focused. And so from curriculum, from selection criteria, we train combinatorial innovators to build ventures. We're outcome centric in that each candidate spends a full year conducting this scoping bottleneck analysis on their sector. Being a distributed institution means that after year 1, candidates are matched with a sequence of the world's most entrepreneurial professors and lab leaders, opening their labs to combine techniques across disciplines. And being diversity first, our program is designed from recruitment through to mentorship, through to pedagogy, to be a path for women and Black and minority ethnic individuals and all of us. It's a curriculum that builds the traits of our ideal science founder into everything that we're training. And it actually begins to remove barriers that are holding back STEM PhD and access to it. So we spend much time thinking about the ideal science founder at DSV, their attitudes, their knowledge and skills, and traits like magnetism, like concise storytelling. We've designed every learning objective to pass on these competencies and habits of mind. And these are what we find in our best founders across genders, nationalities, and ethnicities. People with these traits make stronger applicants to the VSD, and so that we're actually broadening access to STEM PhD by recruiting people of all races and backgrounds, not for the content of their CV primarily, but the content of their character, the things that they really love to build and do. And so with new incentives for societal impact, with broader access to STEM PhD training, we're making science and technology more equitable for all. In health, in climate, in agriculture, and in computation, you can build a sector scale company in 3 years. This is what it looks like. Before recruitment and training, we work with universities and industry to begin to define clusters of commercial challenges, a bit like Irini was speaking about earlier. And so we're working with Imperial College London, the Mayo Clinic, the Henry Royce Institute, the UK's National Manufacturing Institute, Cornell University, and more. Let's say we recruit you into this process. In year 1, you would use scoping with a DSV venture supervisor assigned to support your project from day 1. And starting with that high-level societal outcome, you would map what's happening in industry, you would reveal constraints, and you would develop your hypothesized solutions and begin evidencing them. Your approaches would become research projects, which we can then rank using the language of that scoping system by impact and by feasibility. And in year 2, you would enter the lab. You'd begin prototyping. In year 3, that would probably take you into a different discipline. You could complete your prototyping by moving to a different lab, a different department, a different country, to build out that emerging technology with the collaborators that we have now standing by to support the completion of that emerging tech. And then you would build your team and raise seed investment. Here, your venture supervisor can guide you. And so let's imagine you join the Venture Science Doctorate, taking clean energy production from chemical waste as your high-level outcome. You could identify the increasing fertilizer use that's happening in agriculture. Over the next 5 years, you could quantify that. And with the constraint there that fertilizer spillovers are actually polluting rivers, that they nitrify and kill fish. And so in year 1, you could conceive of a way to convert that fertilizer waste into green hydrogen. In year 2, you could enter a leading synthetic biology lab at UCL, let's say, engineer a bacteria that could actually be fit for this conversion, chemical reaction. You might find that your bacteria don't work when you take them to a river full of dying fish. And so in year 3, you could move labs, perhaps working now at Cornell University with polymer chemists to encapsulate your bacteria in a protective layer. That might also be the part of the technology that stores the hydrogen. Your clean tech produces a valuable fuel while reducing environmental damage. You could recruit co-founders and fundraise with DSV. In 3 years, you would have leveraged cutting-edge research and curated an expert community for one of the most important science companies in your industry. The Venture Science Doctorate would be awarded, recognizing your systematic approach and extraordinary dedication to solving hard problems in deep tech. The research teams you work with would benefit too. And so VSD is designed for partner labs to amplify their impact together. It's a place where you accelerate your career by working on solutions to challenges that you really care about, academics and candidates. And so not every scientist, not every lab is trying to solve these sort of societal grand challenges. Those that are can find the pattern of grant funding today for research, for papers, and then for more grant funding, a little underwhelming. VSD is your opportunity to identify the commercial challenges that we really need to be tackling next on steering groups with world-leading entrepreneurial researchers. So consider joining our growing R&D coalition for this, having devices, reagents, and data sets that are born in your lab become unique assets for prestigious collaborations and publications. All of this would be fantastic, but we would hope that your main thrill as a host lab would be actually changing the lives of people, benefiting from the inventions that you enabled. I've had the privilege and thrill of speaking to fascinating young researchers, policymakers, university leadership, founders, funders, and many more who all care about VSD and the future of the PhD system. At this point, I hope you've enjoyed hearing about scoping and about how VSD looks and feels. Our applications are actually open now. They close May 1st. We would love to hear from you. Please apply now. And thank you so much for tuning in. Claire, I'm going to pass back to you now.
Super. Thank you, Thane. I always really love hearing you speak so passionately about the Venture Science Doctorate. And just a reminder to everybody that's on the webinar to go back, and if you haven't already seen it, watch the VSD unveiling webinar that we did back in October, about 6 months ago now. And that's all on the website as well, the Deep Science Ventures website, also on YouTube, and it gives you a little bit more context, or a lot more context, and there's a whole webinar devoted to what the VSD is. So definitely go and check that out. We've got just a couple of minutes left, but we might go over by a few minutes if that's okay, just because I want to squeeze in some questions. We've got quite a few coming in on the live Q&A, and then also I think we've all got all of our own as well. So Antonio asks, who is providing research infrastructure to the PhD students? Thane.
Yeah, and so we're doing that in the distributed institution structure. So working with the Mayo Clinic, with Imperial College London, the University of Edinburgh, University of Glasgow. So we want, in the first instance, candidates to come and sit with us and really master scoping. There's a lot to dig into there, and that is how you would design a set of research projects that you could then move the best of those forward. You would move it forward then from wherever you are in a kind of decentralized virtual format to then one of the labs in our network that I've been mentioning.
Super, thank you. Then we've got we have various people asking who can apply, who is eligible, and I think the answer we know, Thane, is that anybody from anywhere. And then quite a few questions around the logistics and the sort of practicalities of visas, etc. So just to say that we are seeking the ability to sponsor academic visas, and we can already sponsor visas for post-graduation. So that's a work in progress. Donna is asking, what do you expect this amazing program, thank you Donna, will bring to the STEM ecosystem in the next 5 years? So just fast forwarding, I guess in 5 years time, year 5 for us, we'd have had obviously 5 cohorts, but we'd have scaled significantly. What do you imagine we'd have brought to the ecosystem by then, Thane?
Yeah, and so scaling the program every year means that we would have trained tens of VSD candidates by then. And what I hope that would start to do is, with this kind of coordinated starting point and scoping, that actually you'd see synergies between the different companies. So some of the founders scientists who come into DSV today and become founders actually use scoping to find multiple investable ideas, business ideas that we see should become companies, and they create a little cluster themselves. People create 2 and 3 companies, and then we build out founding teams with them. We help them get funded. And so I think that would be a really powerful way to sort of signal we can be leveraging these kind of accelerated learning techniques and actually helping people to launch multiple companies in parallel. We've got serial entrepreneurs. I think we can have parallel entrepreneurs. But also, I think the most important thing we can do for the ecosystem is promote mindset change. And so the opportunity that you have as a scientist is absolutely like mind-boggling. If you go into some of what, you know, Sam was talking about, Craig at ARPA-H, Barbara and Doc and everyone that you've been hearing from today, those kinds of opportunities, I think we sometimes get into scientific training, we put our heads down, we try to get the papers out, and we forget that that's all still to play for. And then, you know, I mentioned right at the start, some people who a few years into that process sort of wake up and think, what am I doing with my research? I'd really love to encourage people to take these tools, to be really driven and take ownership of their own research projects and aim at their own moonshots. We'd love to kind of popularize that.
Yeah, and we've got lots more coming in. I want to try and squeeze in as many as we can. Patricia's asking, can I apply to the Venture Science Doctorate with an existing research and venture idea? Dom, did you want to take this one?
Yeah, I was just to say, what we typically do, obviously, is work backwards from an outcome to an idea. And so what we do, if you already had an idea, is we'd fast forward to that outcome and ask and treat the VSD as an opportunity to ask, is the idea you've had the optimal way of solving that outcome, and explore widely around it. And So I strongly encourage you to come to the program open-mindedly and make full use of the faculty, which is this kind of opportunity to think about the optimum impact that you personally could possibly have. You definitely don't need an idea to apply. You just need to really care about solving a broad societal outcome.
Super, thank you. And for either of you, lots of questions about the recruitment process, what to do next. And we've got one quite specific query. Would a 25-year plus experienced software professional around 50 years old be eligible to? And I think the answer is yes, this is open to everybody. Do you want to say anything about the recruitment process and next steps, perhaps Thane?
Yeah, I've been massively excited by the hundreds of people that are writing in so far, and it's really broad. So we do get people asking us before they apply, is it for me? Usually the answer is yes. We've got people from so many different countries, Japan, Turkey, Ghana, Iran, Pakistan, India. It's really amazing, and we're looking forward to building an eclectic cohort of very driven innovators and people who think differently about science.
That's great. Do we have any more questions for the other panelists, the other speakers you've heard from today? Just pop them in the Q&A now, and I'll try and gather those up as we start to summarize. So I think we've squeezed in a lot. We've heard from Thane and Abby back at the beginning, 2 hours ago now, it seems like ages ago, gave us an introduction to the practice of scoping. Thank you for joining us, Abby. We've heard from Dom, Doc and Barbara on different approaches to road mapping and its value for founders, essentially, ultimately doing the impossible. We had Irina's wonderful workshop into how Deep Science Ventures founders use scoping and our really quite unique approach to that. Some great examples from Craig and Sam on scoping institutions and the compelling case for more, which is what we want to hear. That's great. They have different views on how and where to use innovation road mapping, but really good to see that their alignment on it being central to creating venture scientists, that care and they care, and they're impactful, they're making impactful R&D rather, and they're caring about venture creation, and that this really matters. So I think Craig said something about the best program managers are those that are atypical. They have to be scientific but also to some extent social geniuses and leaders in their own right, and particularly important opportunity for mid-career and pivoters. And then Sam was really sort of advocating for this new type of organisation, something that is totally complementary to the traditional research base that we've got. And on the Venture Science Doctorate as well, Thane explained why scoping training embedded really early on is so key to creating this new kind of talent, the venture scientists, that we use that term all the time. Please start using the term as well, for intersectoral porosity. So this hypermobile new type of talent that can move between two worlds, the venture creation world and the academic research world, simultaneously and effortlessly, and for stronger science clusters. So there's all of the whys in there. Why are we doing this? At Deep Science Ventures, we really believe that we need new kinds of institutions and new kind of pathways. We believe that to create new types of talent, venture scientists who are trained in new ways, including in scoping, are the new types of talent that we need really urgently, and that we need new models of scientific training designed for equality and diversity. And we touched on a little bit of that today, both in academia and in industry as well. So the Venture Science Doctorate is now just 6 months from launch, the first cohort starting, and it's been a couple of years in the making. We've got that backing from the global science policy community, from philanthropic organisations and from corporate sponsors. And we have this supervisory network of the world's most entrepreneurial science professors, a curriculum, the accreditation model, delivery partners, but there is still time to join us. So as we've been urging you during this session, we want to hear from you, we want to work with you, and whether you're a researcher, a potential supervisor, graduate, funder, diversity champion, founder, a national lab. We'd particularly love to hear from you on curriculum development still. It's almost there, on diversity and on community building. And if you want to be a part of that first cohort, do apply now. Now is the time. I'm just going to check back and see if we've got any more Q&As coming in for the rest of our panelists. It looks like most of them are around the recruitment process. Somebody is saying competition is going to be fierce. I love that. I think we can say it already is, Thane. Do you want to say a quick word about that?
Yeah, so we've had about 200 applicants in about a month, and we've had lots of appetite for this webinar, so maybe more people will be joining off the back of this. What I can say is, if you're capable of already demonstrating that you're really entrepreneurial, you've maybe already started thinking in those terms in your own work. If you're going after some really large challenge, like some of the ones that we've been banging on about today, you will find that you're in the top percentile of people. If you scan the application QR code, you'll find a set of entry requirements, but also the attitudes and traits that I was talking about, things like actually empathy and first principles thinking, obviously linking to scoping. So the slide before, those are really key as well. We see those as very important to someone successfully making it through this journey.
Yeah, and we've had some more coming in as well. You know, what if a candidate brings their own funding? We hadn't planned for that, Thane, but would you like to go back to that one?
I don't think that would be a problem, Claire. And so not a lot of people are doing that, and happy to see that in the application.
Yeah, the last one coming in is, sorry.
Actually, I could say just on that, sometimes people wonder, obviously, about IP ownership. And so we really want candidates to own their IP and take these companies forward. And so funding sometimes plays a role into that. And maybe that question was around, would the program be different? Would I own everything that I'm inventing? You would own those things anyways. So please do just throw that into your application.
The last one coming in is really around the admission process and the timelines, and wondering if there's going to be sufficient time for particularly international candidates to participate between now and actually when this first cohort applications closes 1st of May this year, and September when they would start.
Yeah, and I think that's a very variable question depending on where you're coming from, and depending, you know, whether you need a visa or different types of support. It's one that we're familiar with. So we work with founders today in over 24 different countries. I personally had to sort this kind of visa status thing out for my own PhD. So, you know, we're sympathetic to those concerns. We work with people in that way often. And so please do drop in your application, and we will support. If you're the best, we will not be not allowing you to apply because of your location. In fact, in the first year, you can be fully decentralized and in your country of residence.
Super, thanks, Thane. So like I say, it's not the end, it's the start of the conversation. If you want to find out more, you know where to go, and you can go back and check this recording out and the one from October as well. Finally, thank you to all of our speakers. We've really tried to squeeze it in today. We've had Thane, Abby, Dom, Doc, Barbara, Irini, Craig and Sam. And thank you to you for your great questions and on the Q&A and your participation. To the Nucleate community for joining us today. That was really special. And thank you to Noah as well behind the scenes at Deep Science Ventures, supporting with this event. So do stay in touch. You've got all of the details there up on the screen, and speak soon. Bye-bye.